As promised, returning to Ethiopia, the United Nations has said the Ethiopian government must allow international observers after at least 90 people were killed over the weekend in violence between demonstrators and police. Live to Charles Stratford, who's in Addis for us. So, Charles, what's been the government reaction, if any, on the call for allowing human rights an investigation into the violence over the weekend?
Absolutely zero reaction so far, no official reaction online, and no statement given, and we've actually tried this morning repeated attempts to speak to government officials, and phones, certainly at this stage, off. It's seriously significant, though, this call for inspectors or certainly observers to be in these regions to try and monitor what is being described as the worst political crisis this ruling party has faced in 25 years since coming to power. As you reported there over the weekend, there were protests in the Oromo region, protests in the similar region that we saw earlier this year, in which rights groups reported around 400 people were killed. There were also protests, though, in a separate area in Amhara. That's the second largest ethnic group. And rare protests here in the capital, Addis Ababa, around 90 people killed and hundreds more arrested. So yes, a serious problem here for this government, and obviously we're all waiting to see how it's going to respond to this call for the UN for these observers to be based here.
Right. The government, Charles, has described these protests as a threat to the national unity, in Ethiopia. How exactly are they trying to control the message?
Well, as we speak, the internet today is working intermittently. Over the weekend where these protests happened, the internet was effectively closed down for 3 days. Social media, apps like WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook were also closed down. The government here is very scared of what can only be described as a developing PR disaster. I mean, we've got to remember that it was only this time last year that the US President Barack Obama was here and gave this government a ringing endorsement off the back of its elections in May, elections that opposition here say were rigged. We've also had statements from the US Embassy here saying that it was deeply concerned with the violence, and said that it sent out deep condolences to those affected. You know, it has been a very difficult year for this government, a government that has suffered also the worst drought in 30 years. Those glowing economic gains that are made have been seriously affected this year, and what we're seeing unfold, seemingly, is a very serious political crisis with political unrest that has been spreading in recent days in this country.
Charles, thank you very much for that. Charles Stratford reporting there live from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.